Hey guys, Nick from KN Tech here. Slight change of location for this video, in as much as I'm not sat at my desk. I'm actually sat at a small workbench I set up in my office because I'm going to be doing a new build today. My new build's going to be going into my new test bench to start with, and if you haven't seen that video, I'm going to put a link for it up here. These are the components I'm going to be using in the new build. I'll go through them in more detail one at a time, but yeah, stick along guys and we'll stick it in the new test bench and we'll see how it works. Okay, we're going to start out with the motherboard. And this is the MSI Meg X570 Unify. Now this is socket AM4 obviously, but it also supports PCIe Gen 4. And the reason I got that is because I want to use a PCIe Gen 4 SSD to give me faster read-write times. So the reason I've gone for this motherboard is it's got 3 NVMe drives, as you can see. It also has an onboard power and reset switch, along with a display there, give me error codes if there are any errors on the main board. And that means when I put it in my test bench, I haven't got to fumble around trying to figure out which 2 pins actually start the PC. Next we have my NVMe SSD. This is a Seagate Firecuda 520. This is 500 gigabytes or half a terabyte, near enough. Now for the memory. So I've gone with 64 gig of 3200 memory. It's a little bit overkill, but I do quite a bit of rendering and a bit of editing, and that's going to make a big difference when I do that. And now of course for the centerpiece. This is the AMD Ryzen 9 3900X. This is 12 cores, 24 threads, 3.8 gig base, 4.6 boost. This is going to make a big difference, like I said, when it comes to doing the editing and the rendering that I do an awful lot of. Initially when I put this on my test bench, I'm going to be using the AMD Ryzen. This is simply because I'm going to have it on my test bench so I can get it configured and set up. But eventually when I put it into my case, I'm going to be using the water cooled block which you've seen. So like I said, this is the water cooler that I'm going to be using when I do actually eventually put it into my computer. But initially I'm going to be using the Wraith cooler. This is the Corsair Hydro-X XC7 RGB. And this is going to be plugging into my Commander Pro, which means all of my colours within my case are going to be synced up. Alrighty, let's get this installed. Okay, now for the CPU cooler. This is the first time I've done an AMD cooler, so this might take me a moment or two. Okay, so pop the clips over, that keeps it in place, and then we just tighten it up. Seems real tight. Okay, no, that seems okay. It just seemed really tight when I put it on. I wasn't sure about it. That's cool. Alrighty, now we'll get the RAM in. Okay, so now it's time to get it in the test bench and we'll see if we can get this thing fired up. And now finally the graphics card. So now we're going to fire it up for the first time, and after a few restarts we should be able to boot into BIOS. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flash the BIOS to the latest version. I've already downloaded the latest version of the BIOS and put it on a memory stick and plugged it into the back of the motherboard. Okay, so now I want to set the memory up with this XMP profile. I'm going to do that in there. So now we'll boot into what should be our installer for the OS. Perfect. So I'm going to get the OS installed and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got Windows installed and I've got a lot of my documents copied across and my settings and my programs from the machine that this is going to be replacing. This is because I want to do a quick side-by-side comparison of the two just to see what kind of improvement I'm going to be getting from this CPU compared to my old one. So just for a comparison, I'm going to be using Cinebench R20. I'm also going to be using Geekbench and the BMW Blender Render. We can already see that the new CPU is much quicker than the old one, mainly down to the fact that it's got 24 cores and not 6. I'm going to spin through this and just show you the results at the end. We can see from that video that the difference between the two CPUs is quite large, and that's mainly down to the fact that the new CPU has 24 cores, that'd be the 3900X. The old 8600K only has 6. That's where we see the big difference in the multi-core performance. So let's take a look at those scores real quick. The big thing that I take away from those scores really is the fact that whilst the performance of the multi-core test is quite significant, the actual performance difference between the single-core test is not that huge, with the Cinebench score of 425 for the 8600K and only 492 for the 3900X, which is not a massive improvement. Also on the Geekbench, we had 1151 for the 8600K and 1270 for the 3900X. The multi-core tests show a different story though. The Cinebench for the 8600K was 1471. That said, I did manage to get that up to 2243 with a 4.9 gig all-core overclock. That's compared to the 3900X score of 6879. That's a massive improvement. Again, with the Geekbench multi-core, we had 5198. So that's 5,198 for the 8600K and a staggering 12,229 for the 3900X. And also the BMW Blender Render is where we really show a huge difference, with the 8600K giving us a score of 369 seconds compared to the 3900X of 125 seconds. That's 6 minutes and 9 seconds for the Intel chip and only 1 minute and 4 seconds for the AMD chip. So I think it's fairly safe to say that the AMD chip is going to outperform the Intel chip in this particular scenario multiple times. Don't forget to tune in for part 2 for this video. That's where I'm going to be transferring the new build into this case. That means stripping all the water cooling off this current build and returning it back to an air-cooled rig. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification to be notified when I put more videos up. Thanks for watching guys, I'll see you on the next one.